Hello, Internet. Didn't put out a video last week because I got the flu. It was a pretty trying week. But while I was sick, I seen the whole school walk-off thing, which that was something different. The conviction on those kids' faces that they were doing the right thing was pretty scary. And if you ever want to see a live event, like how things are going down in real time without opinion thrown behind it, what you're going to do is open up your Snapchat app, go to the camera thing, then slide your two fingers together, like this. And it'll pull up a map of the whole world. And then you can zoom out and go to different locations, and people just post videos. And you can click on it and watch it. And I was able to watch those protests live as they were happening. And what they were protesting made no sense. They were protesting the NRA, which you can't because the NRA is the gun community. It's not like Walmart or something, with an organization, stuff like that. Like, they're funded by us. You'd have to cut off our funding to make them go away. And all they are is a lobbyist organization to put gun measures into check. They're just there to ask why. Is that really necessary? Is that constitutional? Yes, they don't do the greatest job, but they are something. Another thing they were protesting was the gun show loophole. And they just don't understand that what they're actually protesting is private sales in a gun show. Like, and I'll annotate it in if I'm wrong, but last I checked, it was illegal to buy a firearm with the intent to sell it without a dealer's license. When you go to a gun show and somebody's selling a firearm and they're not a firearms dealer, it's just a private seller that bought a firearm, they no longer want it, or they didn't like it, so they're selling it off. The other thing they were protesting were just guns in general, and you can't protest guns or AR-15s or any sort of inanimate object. What they're actually protesting is freedom. And I believe that even if they just understood the price we've paid for freedom to this point, or even the meaning behind the Stars Spangled Banner, a lot of these kids wouldn't have shown up.
And what he found had happened was that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when hit had fallen, but men, fathers, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died.
And it went violent in California. And yeah, you could be like, oh, that was the outliers or the exceptions. What, you think the kid that did the school shooting isn't the exception? You know how many firearms owners there are in the United States of America and how few shootings they are? I bet you if you were to figure out the percentages, I bet you there was a higher percentage of kids violent at that protest than there have ever been of people doing crimes with firearms. I think if they were going to actually protest and try to get laws into place, one that would have actually made sense is, hey, when somebody commits a crime like this, it is illegal to drop their name or show their picture on the internet. Because in a lot of these cases, the people will research other school shootings. Yes, they're already suicidal and they already plan on dying, but if you were to strip away the fame, the recognition of doing something like this, I think it would make it less desirable.
Heavy research right now has featured sociologists looking into how reporting teen suicides actually causes suicide rates to increase. This applies locally as well as on the national level. When Marilyn Monroe's suicide was widely reported on, the national suicide rate increased by 12%. Because of this, many news organizations have policies in place against reporting teen suicides in obituaries.
Not to mention they never, ever, ever talk about failed shootings or failed robberies or where somebody goes into a gun or goes in with a gun and they fail miserably. And I think if they were to show those more, it would make it seem like, oh, hey, just going in and doing this is not 100% successful. Maybe they think about something else to do to try to get famous. And I also think that, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make the schools a harder target. Whether that be like a different setup for security measures or what have you. Allowing teachers to carry if they want to. I don't know. I'm not that person. Also, being 21 to buy a firearm. I covered this in other videos, but you can't really take different freedoms and move it up to a higher age than being an adult. What you need to do if you want to make things less accessible, or not less accessible, not accessible until a certain age, you need to move the age of an adult. That includes, going to the military, voting, buying things, drinking, firearms, everything needs to be moved to one age. You can't spread it out. It needs to be clear cut. This is when you're an adult. I also think that we wouldn't have so many problems with like school shootings and stuff if kids just weren't afraid. If they deal with their bullies. Yes, you might get your face smashed in dealing with your bully, but that'll end your bully problem. Kids that get bullied is because they're allowing themselves to get bullied. And yeah, when I dealt with my first bully, I went way south. Like, it was not at all I had planned. Basically, in 3rd grade, I had picked up a bully. And for whatever reason, once I had one bully, I started picking up more bullies. By like 7th grade, I had like 4 or 5 bullies. And I had talked to my dad. I'm like, hey, this is getting rough. I don't even want to go to school anymore. The bullying is just relentless, like every single day. Just, ugh. And I couldn't take it anymore. He's like, well, the way I see it, there's 3 ways to deal with an enemy. You can run from them, which isn't possible because you're in the same school. You can befriend them, or you can crush them. I'm like, well, I tried befriending them, and we seem to be friends just fine when we're not at school, but then when we're at school, it's just a totally different person. Like, well, what I recommend is make sure you're in front of the whole class, get the bully's attention, lock eyes so they know you're not afraid with them, and punch them in the gut. Now, there's many possibilities of what's going to happen after this point. 2 of the most likely is they're either going to double over and just grab the back of their head and smash their nose in, or they're going to bum rush you, maneuver their head under your arm, and drive it into the ground, or you're going to get your face smashed in. Either which way, doing it in front of the whole class, your bullying days will be over. You'll probably get expelled, but when you get back into school, you guys will most likely be best of friends. I'm like, okay, so that was my plan. That's what I had decided in my head. So I'm in gym class. We're just about to be done with gym class. Everybody's in a line for roll call. I'm like, hey, Pauline. I lock eyes with her, and then her face softens and she smiles at me, which totally threw off my whole game. So instead of punching her in the gut, I wind up accidentally punching her in the boob, and then I just froze. And then she football punted me in the groin, making me go down and cry in front of the whole class. After the class was dismissed, the coach helped me up. He's like, can you walk, or do you want me to go to the nurse's station and get you a wheelchair? And he helped me up, and he's like, just kind of walk around in a circle for a little bit, and the pain will eventually fade. And I don't know what you were trying to do, but that was the strangest way I've ever seen a guy try to court a girl. Hope it works out for you. And after seeing those protests, I used to have a big fear that the Constitution would erode to a point to where we'd allow a dictator into power. And I don't want to hear, oh, what do you plan on taking down their tank with your puny little AR-15? You can't just conquer an area. And tell that to the Viet Cong.
Broken arrow! Broken arrow!
You have to be able to hold the area, which requires bodies on the ground. If they cannot hold the area, they cannot keep the area, which means they don't win. But that's not the point. Now I have a new fear. I'm actually pretty afraid that some YouTuber, just gonna pick one for an example here, makes a terrible video and calls for the YouTube community to rise up and go door to door and strip away firearms. What's up, low gangers? Since the evil people using those evil weapons of war are using legal loopholes so the government cannot take them away, I'm calling on you, low gainers, to go door to door, house by house, and remove them yourself. If you are unfamiliar with how to destroy them, there'll be a link in the description below. Also, don't forget to buy low gain merch. Maverick for life. So hopefully that'll never happen, because if it does happen, I believe we're going to have some serious problems, especially after seeing what happened in California with those kids going crazy. And that was just one kid on the news. And then that kid was like, oh, blah, 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 the blood is on your hands for not doing this. Dude, none, and I mean none, of the proposed firearms laws would have stopped or prevented this from happening. The simple fact of the matter is you cannot outlaw evil. It's just not possible. You know, maybe if they did come up with a law that made evil illegal and evil somehow found it, I don't know, like legislation E66666, I'd be the first person calling my congressman telling them to support it. But it's just not possible. You can't stop an evil person from doing evil things without using some sort of physical force. It's just not going to happen.
He remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees.
Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.